able to train a bit, so tell me your belt level and if you're training, how long you've been training for, and all that jazz. And if you have any questions, yoga for BJJ related. So chuck me your belt level, how long you've been training, and if you have any questions for yoga for BJJ, you have questions for me, yoga for BJJ related. Oh yeah, you guys are training. Awesome. Good. You know, it's so encouraging for me to hear when people from, you know, different parts of the world are training. That's really encouraging for me to hear that stuff's getting better and opening up. It's super exciting. Seattle, brown belt female business owner, 9 years on the mat. Do you know what? You're not too far from me. Yeah, you're in Seattle. I'm actually in Kelowna, so just across the board. I think you're 7 hours from me. So when the borders open up and I'm allowed to leave, we should get together and train a bit. You're in Seattle. I love Seattle. Teaching the basics every day. Awesome. Oh, I'm so glad to hear this. This just made my day, everybody. Stuff's opening up. Everyone's training. We're living our best lives. Yeah, no, I will. Follow me on Facebook or send a DM. I'm watching Instagram right now. Adam and I we have our shifts with Instagram, so I'm watching right now. Send me a DM. You know what? You want to see something for tight hips that is perfect. Like what I have for today is stuff for beginners, right? Yeah, thank you. Yeah, we'll get together and train from Brazil. So awesome. Well, that's great. You guys training in Brazil? So today's stretches are for beginners. So beginner stretches for BJJ. People that have been training jiu-jitsu maybe for a while or not a while, but they just need some stretches. Tight hips. Oh, they get so tight. Okay, let's look at the front of the hips, let's look at the sides of the hips, and let's look at the back of the hips. Let's look at all three of those, some really great basic stretches. Purple belt, 5 years, Ecuador. I have a friend he's actually he's in the States, and he owns a school, and he's from Ecuador too. So really, really cool. Australia. Awesome, yeah, yoga for BJJ. That's our Instagram. Jump on there and follow us. And you'll actually, because you're on Facebook, you'll see me live on Instagram right now. So we're always posting on Instagram all types of tips, all types of information. And as people, I think people are realizing more and more, it's really cool how much the yoga helps the jiu-jitsu. Blue belt with 4 stripes, and you've been training 5 years. That is a solid blue belt, my friend. Yeah, and I'll be on for a little while, Jason, so if you need help finding the yoga for BJJ Insta, let me know. Oh, I have someone from England. You're kind of close to Adam, hey? All right. Yeah, thanks. You know, I like my rash guard too. Thank you. Okay, here we go. Let's move into some stretches. Keep sending your comments in. Keep sending me where you're training. Keep sending your questions in. Now, front of the hips. Okay, so the reason why they get so tight is because the legs are bent a lot of the time. They're bent when we're driving, we're sitting, even in jiu-jitsu they're bent, where if I'm sitting in the guard, I have someone's guard around me, or if I'm playing guard, I'm on my back, the legs are bent when I'm playing guard, or even if I'm inside controller mount, the legs are constantly bent. So we're seeing an imbalance here, and that's why it's really good to stretch them. So first thing is, let's unbend the legs. Let's get them unbent. Before jiu-jitsu, Eugene, you were in Taekwondo for 23 years. What do you find, how do you like jiu-jitsu? How do you like it in comparison to Taekwondo? 2 very different arts, but both really amazing. Okay, here we go. Stretch it. I always interrupt myself to talk a bit more. Let's stretch the front of the hip. Go into low lunge. 90-degree angle front leg, 90-degree angle the back. With the back leg, push the top of the foot to the ground, push the shin to the ground, push the knee to the ground. So pressure, pushing that whole back foot to the ground. Now, engage your glute. That's a professional term of saying engage your butt, and push the hip forward. So you will feel a stretch through the front of the hip, and we are stretching not just the hip flexors, but also the quad, because the quads get really tight. So the whole front of that hip. Now, to add to this, lift the left arm up. So left knee's on the ground, stretching through the knee, hip, shoulder. Lift the left arm up, and then to add a little more, bring it over to the right side. This will be a really, really nice stretch through that entire left side. So start with that, obviously on both sides, so you're balanced. Really simple, really nice. Then the next thing is post both hands on the ground, and my hands are on the inside of my leg. You can do the leg in between. That's nothing wrong with that, but it just feels really nice to have the leg to the outside for this. It's called lizard stretch. I'll let you imagine why. Now, the left leg, stretch it all the way back. You can't quite see. Actually, yeah, you can see pretty good. I'm on my toes, so stretch it all the way back. And, oh, sorry guys, just hold on. I forgot a technical thing here so that everyone can see the comments, so just give me 1 second. Let me see. Okay, here we go. So everyone can see the comments that are going on with the live. There we go, that's a little bit nicer. I'm pretty good at the technical stuff, but almost perfect, I would say. No, I'm just kidding, not quite. Okay, here we go. So that's been fixed now. Now everyone can see the comments on YouTube and Facebook. Back to where we were. I'm a black belt in jiu-jitsu. I'm not a black belt in technical stuff, but I'm getting there, strong blue. Now, you'll feel the stretch through the back hip. You'll feel the stretch of the back hip. It'll be really nice. Keeping the back leg straight, either leave it straight or bend and extend the back leg. This is really nice. So we have 2 stretches for the back leg. We have the low lunge, and then we also have the straight leg. Okay, front of the hip. Back of the hip. Simply walk the hands back. You'll feel a stretch through the entire hamstring, and this will feel really, really nice. Sometimes it's actually almost painful to stay here because the hamstrings get to be so tight behind the leg because, again, like we talked about, the legs are always bent. So go ahead and walk the leg forward and back. These are 2 amazing stretches for the front of the hip and the back of the hip. If you are feeling adventurous and you want to try this in a class, I put together a class called I Don't Want to Do Yoga Flow. So it's a really amazing class. Go on to yogaforbjj.net or jump on the app and search I Don't Want to Do Yoga. I have super complex names for my classes, I know, but these stretches are in there. Okay, so here we go. Now the next one is the outside of the hips. And the outside of the hips gets so tight. And when they're tight, when any of the hips are tight, they tend to pull on the back, they tend to pull on the knees. So when people are talking to me and they're like, oh, my knees are sore, usually the first thing I ask is, how tight are your hips? So it's a really good question. Great stretches for just starting jiu-jitsu. So keep sending all your questions in. I want to keep answering them for you guys. And actually, I'm going to scroll up here a tiny, tiny bit. Yeah, you know what? Use that to warm up with your beginners. That's a really great, 2 really great stretches. Next one, amazing for after class. Go on your back. Then I talked about this one a lot. I have in a lot of my recent classes because I love it. Put your, just like you're at the beach, ankle to the quad, just like you're at the beach, then lower the foot down to the side. And you know what, this leg is going to be kind of crazy and sliding. So grab the shin and allow your chest to go on the ground. Right away, you'll feel a stretch through the outer hip. And the outer hips tend to get tight because they're really big stabilizers for walking, for jumping, to keep our hips from popping out. They're big stabilizers. They just tend to get tight because they do a lot of work. So this is quite a nice stretch for that. Then simply so that's the outside of the hips, and simply for the inside of the hips, again, all of these are in my Don't Want to Do Yoga class. I don't want to do yoga. Just that deep squat. Let me see if I stay on frame. There we go. Just my deep squat, just right here. This is super, super nice for the inside of the hips. And if you're feeling really crazy, you can go forward fold, which again stretches the hamstrings and back, to the deep squat. And if your feet can't stay on the ground in the deep squat, that's okay, it doesn't matter. You can have them lifted a little bit. So to recap kind of what I just blabbered about, we have our first stretch, that low lunge, which is really nice. Move from the low lunge. Post the hands on the inside of the leg. Lizard. Drop the knee. Walk the hands back for your hamstring, and you can walk forward and back if you want. Hamstrings, so we have targeted the front of the hip and the back of the hip. Then, you know what, we can go from here just to that deep squat, right? Move to your deep squat. Forward fold, deep squat a few times. The forward fold releases the back, which is again attached to the hips and the hamstrings. And then from here, you can go just to the other side, right? Do the low lunge like we talked about. Do the lizard lunge, your hamstrings, those hammies, then on your back for stretching the outside of the hips. So this is a sequence that you can do, which might be, what, 5 minutes? 5-10 minutes. You can do before training is really nice or after training. And that'll be really, really nice on your hips. And if you find a stretch, like if you're barely doing anything and you find a stretch, for example, if you're stretching the hamstring, I see this a lot. If you're stretching the hamstring, if you're here, if your leg is bent and you already feel it in your hamstring, you're in the pose. Don't push it, you're in the pose. A lot of the time I'll see people trying to push. I'm like, no, you're in the pose here. The fact that I can straighten it means that I've spent a lot of time here and it's been good time, right? That's fine. Doesn't matter how far you go in the pose, you feel a stretch, you're in the pose. Yeah, so try those. And then the next thing I do want to talk about is just some beginner stretches for shoulders and back. We'll save back for last. Shoulders. Grab your jiu-jitsu belt. If you're a no-gi ninja, then just use a towel, use a normal belt, use a shirt, anything you can stretch. And this is really nice. Just take the belt above and behind you. That's all this is. It feels really nice. And if you think about the shoulder blades, a lot of the time, always in jiu-jitsu, but even in life. So this isn't just stretching for BJJ, this is stretching for life, guys. The shoulders are forward. Now look right there. Our shoulders are like this a lot. We get very tight through what's called the thoracic spine, like higher up in the spine. No one cares it's called the thoracic spine. All we care about is how do I fix being tight between the shoulder blades? Here you go. This will feel really nice, opening the shoulders, opening the chest. And go ahead if you want to add a bonus side bend. Keep the belt above your head or the belt-like thing and just side stretch to the left and to the right. So that will be really nice too. You can have some fun with that belt. And again, if you sneak these stretches in a little bit before train, a little bit after training, maybe when the instructor's teaching the technique, if it's not like disrespectful in your club, just to have your belt and be bringing it above your head a couple times, or most instructors don't mind it, and everyone's sitting around you, kind of just do a bit of a lizard stretch. I do this a lot. You know, just bend, extend the back leg. Like you're still watching, but you're adding a few stretches in while you're watching. Doing that makes a big difference. Like doing a little bit of those stretches all the time makes a big difference. It doesn't have to be this perfectly, beautifully set up yoga flow. Like something is always better than nothing. Although I do recommend, like, it's nice to do the class if you can, or the yoga session because they're set up a certain way. Something is always better than nothing though. You can isolate all these stretches on their own. That's why they're called stretches for beginners. Okay, now I've got the belt coming up behind me. We have our side stretches. Great, I feel great. Let's talk about the back, the whole back. Okay, one of the best stretches is, because again, we talked about always going forward, Sphinx, especially as beginners when we're starting. Sphinx, elbows under the shoulders may be too much on the back, and that's okay. If it is, this is where I started. This is where I started because I had a really bad back for a long time, and it's not just me. Splay the elbows out, put the hands on top of each other, and just rest the head on the hands. And if you feel a bend in the back, if this feels like a good bend, stay here. Like we're doing more than just a stretch, we're actually changing the spine. We're changing the body, so it's not just a stretch. This is number one. Now, if you don't feel anything, you need to move on. or if this is enough, then it's enough for now, and that's okay. Next one, elbows are actually in front of the shoulders. This is a little bit more of a back bend. Now if I'm here, pull through the fingers and pull the torso up and forward. Then work your way up to elbows under the shoulders. Again, active fingers, right? Give your fingers a job. Pull the torso up and forward with the fingers. This is really nice for the back, and you can stay here for a little bit. Again, if you're watching your instructor, you can go from this position, what's called Sphinx pose, but don't stay here too long. If you find you're getting a lot out of it, like you're getting a big back bend, you're getting a lot of sensation, don't stay here too long because you do have to move and wrestle on the mats. So, boom. Now, once you've been here, I say 30 seconds, use the hands to push the hips to heels for turtle. So hips to heels and elbows on the ground. I'm still watching the instructor teach, right? Elbows on the ground, watching the instructor teach, or if you're just on your own, you can just go from Sphinx to turtle, Sphinx to turtle, Sphinx to turtle. You could do it like 5, 6, 7 times, watching TV, listening to music, whatever you like. Or if you're watching the instructor, you can do it a few times. But if you're watching the instructor, make sure that you end, he's finishing the technique, end in turtle, because this is a restorative forward fold for the back before you get to wrestling. It's going to be too hard on your back to go from Sphinx to technique, finish in the turtle. And I have a few slower classes like yoga for the exhausted where I'll just honestly sit here. And this, I love this pose. It feels so good on the back. Going to, yeah, just a turtle. So those are really, really nice on the back. Yeah, it is an interesting progression, isn't it? And really, those are just two very almost passive poses with for the back that fit really nicely together. It's a gentle back bend to just a forward fold, and you can go between those. And there's always like a lot more you can do too. Yeah, I'm glad you like those adjustments. I found that going into some stuff was just a bit too much for my back. So there's stuff that I don't do yet, but you're working up to it. Now the next one, which can be really nice, which goes into the higher spine, the thoracic spine between the shoulder blades, is again pulling with the fingers. So fingers are active, elbows against the ribs, lifting and just using the fingers to pull your torso up and forward. You'll feel this more through the shoulder blades. So Sphinx, elbows are on the ground. We're using the hands to pull forward, Sphinx pose. Then going into Cobra, hands under the shoulders. Boom. So this is more upper back. This is more lower back. Right? And lately I've been doing a lot more of the the Cobra, because I found a lot of the upper back has been really stiff. And really, if you look at it, the back and the spine is very often neglected just because, we're busy and we don't think much of it. But the spine is what connects the entire body together. It connects the shoulders, the arms, the legs. It's what carries the nervous system. And so I'm like, why don't I take better care of that spine, right? So for years and years, like I had stuff that impacted it, like surgeries and stuff, but then I'm still like, that's no excuse. Like, I want to train jiu-jitsu, I want to live my life. I'm like, man, you got to take care of the spine. And a lot of the time it's neglected, and that's just the way life is, but it's also not okay. So we're very imbalanced with the forward folds in life and in jiu-jitsu. So what happens when we do those, slowly move into those gentle back bends like I talked about, the Sphinx, and then you complement that with a forward fold of turtle. And you can also go into the Cobra we did, which was really nice, and then going into the turtle. So forward bend, backward bend, just to allow the spine to be balanced. Yeah, so you know what? And if the courses are too expensive, just shoot us a DM, right? Shoot me a DM. Like, we do have a lot of really great free stuff on YouTube, which is for you guys. We put up a lot of free content. We have a lot of free stuff on our Instagram because we want everyone to benefit. We want to reach everyone, we want everyone to benefit. And I have on the If you look at the website, it's called the 10 for 30, 10 minutes of yoga for BJJ every day for 30 days. The first video is free, and that's a spine video. So that video's free, and that's the right price. So I recommend going into the 10 for 30 on the site, just search 10 for 30 and do the first video. Do that every day for 10 days and see the difference in the spine. All right, so you know what? We're actually online. Yoga for Jiu-Jitsu is mostly online, which is really cool because it allows us to reach all the wrestlers across the world and help everyone across the world. Sebastian is actually located in Norway, which is amazing. And Adam is also in the UK, I'm in Canada, so you get everyone from all over the world. Okay, crew, so that's what I have for us today. And try out those stretches. Let me know if you think from the outside of the hips, inside of the hips, the front, the back. We worked on the shoulders a bit. We worked on the side bends. And we also worked on talking about the spinal health, which is really important. So if you do all of these things, you'll feel incredible. We don't have to be beat up from BJJ. We can feel pretty incredible. Not just for jiu-jitsu, but also I found it carries on to life. So shoot me a DM about questions about any of this and keep following me. We're gonna keep going live, keep producing paid content and free content so we can reach everybody and make a difference for everybody, because that's what we're about. All right, so super fun to hang out with you guys, and we will see you next time.